A man named Snot Boogie got shot over a dice game in West Baltimore. And when the detective asks the witness why they kept letting Snot Boogie play, even though he robbed the pot every single time, the guy just looks at him and says, "Got to. This America, man." That is the first scene of The Wire. And honestly, that is the entire show. 5 seasons, 60 episodes. A city where the drug corners never close, the cops chase stats instead of justice, the politicians protect themselves before they protect anyone else, and the kids learn the rules of the street before they learned long division. Every season pulls back another layer. The drug trade, the docks, City Hall, the public schools, the newspapers, and every single one of them is broken. Built by David Simon, a former Baltimore Sun reporter who spent a year embedded with the homicide unit, and Ed Burns, a former detective turned public school teacher. Simon did not research Baltimore, he reported it. Burns did not imagine the drug war. He worked it for 20 years. So yeah, that is the ride we are going on today. Every corner, every courthouse, every classroom, every lie told in a newsroom, all of it. A young man sits on the stoop in West Baltimore and tells Detective Jimmy McNulty about a guy named Snot Boogie. Every Friday night, Snot Boogie would play craps, wait for the pot to build, then grab the money and run. Every Friday night, someone would catch him and beat him down. And every Friday night, they would let him play again. When McNulty asks why, the kid shrugs. Got to. This America, man. That line tells you everything you need to know about this show. McNulty is a homicide detective with a talent for good police work and an even bigger talent for making enemies. He sits in on the murder trial of D'Angelo Barksdale, nephew of Avon Barksdale, the drug kingpin running West Baltimore. A witness recants on the stand. D'Angelo walks free, and McNulty, instead of letting it go like any sane cop would, walks straight into Judge Daniel Phelan's chambers and tells him that the Barksdale organization is responsible for at least 10 murders, and nobody in the Baltimore Police Department is doing a thing about it. This is the moment Jimmy McNulty lights the fuse that burns through the entire first season. Phelan calls Deputy Commissioner Irvin Burrell. Burrell panics, and suddenly Lieutenant Cedric Daniels, a careful, career-minded narcotics supervisor, gets handed a detail nobody wants. Investigate Avon Barksdale. Do it fast, do it cheap, and for the love of God, do not make waves. The detail is a disaster from the jump. Daniels is told in no uncertain terms that this unit exists to fail. Burrell wants buy-busts, quick arrests, dope on the table for the 6 o'clock news. He does not want a real investigation because a real investigation follows the money, and the money leads to politicians who donated to the mayor's campaign. The detail is supposed to make enough noise to satisfy the judge and then shut down before it finds anything that matters. Daniels brings his people from narcotics. Kima Gregg's the best detective in the unit. Herc and Carver, 2 street cops who think police work means kicking down doors. And from Homicide, Rawls sends McNulty and Santangelo. Santangelo is there to spy on McNulty. Everyone knows it. Then, the real gifts arrive. Polk and Mon, 2 detectives so checked out they might as well be furniture. Roland Przybylewski, who accidentally discharges his weapon into the office wall within 5 minutes of showing up. And Lester Freeman, a quiet man who spent 13 years in the pawn shop unit for the crime of being too good at his job. Nobody knows what Freeman is yet. Across the towers, D'Angelo Barksdale has been demoted. His uncle sent him from the high-rises down to the low-rise projects called The Pit. Body Broaddus and Pootkar run the corner. Wallace is a kid with a good heart who looks after a house full of younger kids. D'Angelo teaches Body and Wallace how to play chess using the drug organization as the metaphor. The king stays safe, the queen moves, the pawns get sacrificed first. Body says a pawn can become a queen if it makes it to the other side. D'Angelo looks at him and basically says, the pawns do not make it to the other side. Remember that conversation. It is going to haunt this entire season. Wallace is the heart of the pit. He is a teenager raising a house full of children who are not his. He feeds them. He gets them up for school. He makes sure the little ones have something to eat in the morning, even when the only thing available is potato chips and juice boxes. Wallace does all of this while working as a lookout for a drug organization that would replace him in an afternoon if he disappeared. The detail sets up in a basement office that smells like mildew and broken dreams. The equipment is ancient. The typewriters barely work. Herc jokes about it. Nobody else finds it funny. Daniels reports to Burrell regularly, and every meeting is the same message. Wrap it up. Make arrests. Get dope on the table for the cameras. Do not follow the money. Do not use wiretaps. Do not make this political. Burrell has his own problems. Judge Phelan forced this investigation into existence, and Burrell resents every minute of it. He installs Santangelo as his spy inside the detail, just as Rawls has his own informant keeping tabs on McNulty. The detail is fighting the Barksdale organization and its own department at the same time. Daniels walks a tightrope between doing real police work and keeping his superiors happy. His wife Marla sees the detail as a career dead end and tells him so over dinner. She is not wrong. Every ambitious cop in Baltimore knows that the surest way to stall your career is to make a case your bosses did not want made. Bubbles, a user with a sharp mind and a bigger heart than the city deserves, becomes Kima's confidential informant after the Barksdale crew beats his friend Johnny half to death for using counterfeit bills. Bubbles walks through the projects wearing a red hat and places it on the head of every Barksdale dealer he can find while the detail photographs from a distance. It is the single most effective piece of police work in the first 2 weeks of the investigation, and it comes from a man the department would not even let through the front door. The Barksdale organization operates on discipline. It is the most successful drug empire West Baltimore has ever seen, and it runs like a military operation. Avon is the general. He grew up in the Murphy Homes projects. His family has been in the drug trade for 2 generations. He earned his crown corner by corner, body by body, and he protects it with a combination of loyalty, violence, and an understanding of street politics that no business school could teach. Stringer is the other half. If Avon is the heart of the organization, Stringer is the brain. He manages the day-to-day operations. He sets prices. He manages supply chains. He reinvests profits into legitimate businesses, starting with the funeral home that serves as their headquarters. Stringer reads The Wealth of Nations while Avon watches boxing tapes. They need each other, and they will destroy each other. Avon stays invisible. Stringer runs the business side. Weebay handles the violence. D'Angelo manages the pit and tries to treat it like a job instead of a war zone. He tells his dealers not to rough up the customers. He questions whether the beatings are necessary. He sees people where the organization sees product and revenue. This is what makes D'Angelo dangerous to his own family. Not because he is disloyal, because he has a conscience. And a conscience in the drug trade is a liability that gets people killed. Prez, the man who shot up the office wall, turns out to have a gift for puzzles. He starts decoding the pager messages the Barksdale crew sends back and forth. Numbers that look like gibberish to everyone else become phone numbers and meeting times under Prez's hands. Daniels notices, Freeman notices. The detail has been underestimating Przbalewski since the day he walked in. The detail raids the low-rises. They find almost nothing. The stash has been moved, but Lester Freeman notices a phone number written on a wall. Nobody else gives it a second look. Freeman writes it down. Bunk Moreland and McNulty catch a case. Deirdre Cresson, a young woman shot through her kitchen window months ago. The original investigation was botched. Bunk and McNulty revisit the apartment and reconstruct the murder, communicating entirely in variations of a single profanity. They find the bullet embedded in the refrigerator door lining. Professional, methodical, and somehow one of the most entertaining crime scenes in television history. Back at the detail, Freeman is proving himself to be the most valuable detective on the squad. He is the detective who sees what nobody else is looking at. While the rest of the detail focuses on the drug trade, Freeman follows the money, campaign contributions, property purchases, front companies. He connects the Barksdale organization to politicians, developers, and a network of financial transactions that turn drug money into real estate. Freeman understands something that McNulty never will. You do not solve the drug problem by arresting drug dealers. You solve it by following the money to the people who make the drug trade possible. The lawyers, the politicians, the real estate developers, the people in suits who never touch a package but profit from everyone that gets sold. The man spent 13 years and 4 months in the pawn shop unit. He got sent there for doing his job too well and making a major look bad. When McNulty asks Bunk about Freeman's reputation, Bunk tells him Freeman is natural police, the real thing. Freeman gives McNulty a warning over drinks. He tells him that if a commanding officer ever asks where you do not want to wind up, as though they are concerned about your welfare, do not answer honestly, because they will send you exactly where you said you did not want to go. McNulty does not listen. McNulty never listens. That is simultaneously his greatest strength and his fatal flaw. Meanwhile, D'Angelo tells his crew a story. He brags about killing a woman for his uncle, a woman named Deirdre. It is the kind of story a young man tells to prove he belongs. The detail does not hear it, but the audience does. And the chess game just got a lot darker. The detail gets its first real breakthrough when Judge Phelan signs off on the pager clone. Freeman maps the communication patterns. Every message from D'Angelo's pager consists of a phone number and a 2-digit tag. The numbers are coded. The simple number swap cipher defeats the other detectives until Prez sits down with it. The same man who shot the office wall and blinded a teenager in a housing project raid is now the detail's best cryptanalyst. He cracks the code faster than the FBI's equipment could have. Prez is the show's quiet argument that people are rarely just one thing. A terrible cop can be a brilliant analyst. A violent man can be gentle with a puzzle. The system puts people in the wrong positions and then blames them for failing. That phone number Freeman pulled from the wall, it belongs to D'Angelo's pager. Freeman is the first person in the detail to suggest they need a wiretap. Daniels resists. Wiretaps mean paperwork, court orders, and attention from brass. Everything Burrell told him to avoid. But Freeman sits in his office and says something that cuts through all the politics. He tells Daniels they need to put the cases first. They clone D'Angelo's pager. Priya's, the same disaster who shot the office wall, turns out to be a savant at cracking the coded messages. The Barksdale crew uses pagers with number swap codes, and Prez deciphers them faster than anyone expected. The detail gets its first real look at how the organization communicates. Omar Little enters the picture, and he changes everything. A stick-up artist. He robs drug dealers for a living. Not civilians, not regular people, only the game. He carries a shotgun. He wears a trench coat. He whistles the farmer in the dell when he walks down the street, and every dealer on every corner scatters. And here is the thing. He has a code. He does not curse. He does not harm anyone who is not in the game. He goes to church on Sunday with his grandmother, and the corner boys put their weapons down when she passes because even in the drug trade, some things are sacred. He is also openly gay in a world that violently rejects it. He lives with his boyfriend Brandon. They rob together. They laugh together. And Omar does not hide who he is from anyone. Not the dealers, not the police, not the neighborhood. In a show full of people performing strength, Omar is the strongest person on screen because he never pretends to be anything other than what he is. Omar robs the Barksdale stash house in the pit while D'Angelo is out getting food. Brandon, Omar's boyfriend, accidentally says Omar's name in front of the dealers. That mistake will cost everything. Avon puts a bounty on Omar's crew. When he finds out Omar is gay, he doubles it. That tells you everything about the world these characters operate in. John Bailey is the first to die. Then, Wallace and Poot spot Brandon in an arcade and page it up the chain. Stringer coordinates the response. Brandon is taken, killed, and his body is left on display on top of a car in the projects. Wallace wakes up the next morning and sees what they did to him through his window. That image breaks Wallace. He starts using drugs. He stops coming to work. D'Angelo sees it happening and does nothing because in the Barksdale organization, what exactly is he supposed to do? Omar identifies Brandon's body at the morgue. He is shattered but holds it together. He tells McNulty and Greggs he will testify that Bird killed William Gant, the witness from D'Angelo's trial. Omar walks into the detail office and offers the police something none of their technology or tactics could get them: the truth from a man who has nothing left to lose. Bird gets arrested. His gun matches the Gant murder. But here is what matters. While the detail builds its case on the street, Freeman is building something bigger in the background. Prez is cracking codes. Freeman is following the money through front companies, property records, and campaign contributions. The Barksdale organization is not just a drug crew. It is a machine that launders money through a funeral parlor, a strip club called Orlando's, and real estate holdings across Baltimore. McNulty tails Stringer Bell on his day off by turning it into a game with his sons. They follow Stringer to a community college. He is taking economics classes. Stringer Bell is studying supply and demand while running a drug empire. That is the kind of detail that makes this show what it is. Chardine, a dancer at Orlando's, becomes another crack in the Barksdale wall. D'Angelo has been seeing her. When a fellow dancer named Keisha dies at a party after using, Chardine starts asking questions that D'Angelo cannot answer honestly. Freeman and Greggs pull Chardine in, get her contacts to replace the glasses she never wears at the club, and turn her into an informant. At the basketball game between the East Side and West Side crews, the detail finally gets a clear photo of Avon Barksdale. After years of running West Baltimore, there was not a single usable picture of him in any police database until Sidner matched the face to an old Golden Gloves boxing poster Freeman dug up. Omar tracks Avon to Orlando's, gets him to answer a page using Weebay's code, opens fire, misses Avon, takes a bullet in the shoulder from Weebay, retreats into the night. The war between Omar and the Barksdales is personal now. Orlando gets arrested trying to buy cocaine behind Avon's back. He flips immediately and gives up Avon's name. The detail sees an opportunity. A buy bus using Orlando as the frontman with Kima riding undercover in the back seat. The deal goes wrong. Savino drives them to an empty lot in a neighborhood where the locals have turned the street signs around to confuse police. Two men in hoodies approach the car. Orlando is shot dead. Kima reaches for her gun taped under the seat, but it has slipped out of reach. She calls Signal 13 over the radio. Officer needs assistance. The transmission cuts out before anyone can find her. When the helicopter finally spots the car, Orlando is dead, and Kima is on life support with gunshots to the neck and chest. That shooting tears the detail apart. McNulty spirals into guilt and whiskey. Rawls, of all people, the man who has spent the entire season trying to destroy McNulty's career, finds him covered in Kima's blood at the hospital and tells him it was not his fault. It is one of the most human moments Rawls will ever have on the show. Bubbles pages Kima, not knowing she has been shot. He gets picked up and beaten by a homicide detective who thinks he is a suspect. McNulty has to tell Bubbles what happened. Then he sends Bubbles back into the projects to gather intelligence, not realizing Bubbles has been trying to get clean. Bubbles takes the money. His sobriety dies in that moment, and nobody even notices. The detail identifies the shooters, Weebay Bryce and Little Man, fingerprints on a payphone, DNA on discarded hoodies. But guns and eyewitnesses are another matter. Stringer orders the entire operation restructured. Pagers destroyed, new cell phones distributed, face-to-face meetings only. The wire goes dead. Wallace comes back from the Eastern Shore where Daniels tried to hide him. He is homesick, broken, using drugs. Stringer asks Bodie about Wallace. Bodie says he is weak. Stringer tells Bodie to kill him. Bodie and Poot take Wallace to his apartment. The kids who usually fill the place are gone. Bodie pulls his gun. Wallace pleads for his life. Bodie hesitates, cannot pull the trigger. Poot takes the gun and finishes it. Wallace was a kid who took care of other kids. He noticed things. He had a conscience, and the game chewed him up and spit him out because that is what the game does to pawns. D'Angelo drives to New York to pick up a drug shipment for Avon, gets pulled over by state troopers and arrested by the detail. McNulty interrogates him and tells him Wallace is dead. D'Angelo does not believe it. Then Stringer visits and cannot answer when D'Angelo asks where Wallace is. D'Angelo sees the truth on Stringer's face and loses it. He fires Levy. He is done with his family. Brianna visits D'Angelo in prison. She is his mother, and she has come to talk him out of cooperating with the police. She tells him that Avon would take most of the punishment, that the family needs D'Angelo to step up, that without the game, their family has nothing. She reminds him of his son. She asks how he plans to start over with no money, no education, and no support system outside the family. It is the most devastating conversation in the first season. Not because Brianna is cruel, because she is right about the practical reality and completely wrong about what matters. D'Angelo wanted out. He had a chance at a fresh start. His mother talks him back into a 20-year sentence because the family needs a soldier, not a son. D'Angelo takes the deal. 20 years, the maximum. He tells McNulty and Bunk that he was born into this. His grandfather was Butch Stanfield. His whole family's in the game. He says he felt more free in jail than he ever felt at home. Avon gets arrested. McNulty lets Stringer walk, telling him they will catch him later. Weebay is tracked to Philadelphia through a phone trace and arrested cleanly. At his interrogation, Weebay confesses to multiple murders to protect the organization. He even claims he killed William Gant, which McNulty and Bunk know is a lie because the facts do not match. But Weebay will do the time to keep Bird and the rest of the crew safe. That is his job. That is his role in the game. Omar testifies at Bird's trial wearing the suit Nathan bought him. Maurice Levy cross-examines him and calls him a parasite, feeding off the drug culture. Omar looks at Levy and says they are both the same. Both of them live off the drug trade. The difference is Omar uses a shotgun and Levy uses a briefcase. The courtroom goes quiet. Judge Phelan grins. Bird gets life without parole. Avon gets 7. Stringer walks free to rebuild. Carver gets promoted to sergeant after secretly feeding information to Burl all season. Daniels calls him out and tells him he needs to decide what kind of cop he's going to be. McNulty gets exactly what he was warned about. He told Rawls he did not want the Marine unit, so that is exactly where Rawls sends him. The season ends with a montage. Bubbles back on the streets, Stringer counting money at the funeral parlor, drug trade continuing across every corner of Baltimore, Omar in the Bronx, holding up another dealer and telling him it is all in the game. 13 episodes. An entire drug investigation from start to finish. Every institution exposed. Every character changed or destroyed by the effort. And Baltimore is exactly where it started. Season 2 does something most shows would never attempt. It leaves West Baltimore almost entirely behind and takes you to the docks. Jimmy McNulty is exactly where Rawls wanted him. On a boat, freezing, miserable, pulling drunks out of the harbor and tying knots he cannot figure out. His partner Claude Diggins has basically accepted that McNulty is the worst sailor in the history of the Baltimore Marine Unit. And McNulty, being McNulty, cannot let anything go. He pulls a floater from the water, notices the broken legs, studies the tides for 3 hours, and writes a report proving the body was dumped in Rawls' jurisdiction. Rawls knows immediately who is responsible. That is Jimmy McNulty. He would rather spend his day off doing math than let a case go unsolved. But the floater is just the appetizer. Officer B.D. Russell, a quiet Port Authority cop who mostly checks containers and makes small talk with dock workers, crawls inside a shipping container and finds the bodies of 13 young women in a hidden compartment. Gone. The air pipe on top of the container was crushed. At first it looks accidental. Then McNulty examines the pipe and sees the damage was deliberate. Beatty stands inside the container and counts the bodies. Some of them are curled against the walls. Some of them are piled on top of each other. They died in the dark, scratching at the walls of a metal box on a ship shipping dock in Baltimore Harbor. The air pipe that would have kept them alive was deliberately crushed. Someone murdered these women by sealing the only thing keeping them breathing. 14 dead women, 1 from the harbor, 13 from the container. All of them end up on the homicide board in Landsman's squad, written in red in a single column. Rawls tries everything to push the cases elsewhere. County, Coast Guard, and Arundel. Nobody wants them. They all land right back on his desk. The homicide detectives buy McNulty 14 shots at the bar to mark the occasion. Because this is Baltimore, and if you cannot laugh at the horror, it will swallow you whole. And look, here's the thing about Season 2. When it first aired, people hated it. Where is Avon? Where is Stringer? Who are these dock workers, and why should we care? It took years for the audience to come around. But when they did, Season 2 became many people's favorite because Frank Sobotka is the most tragic figure on this entire show. And that is saying something. The man at the center of the dock story is Frank Sobotka, Secretary-Treasurer of the Stevedores Union, a man who loves the port the way McNulty loves police work, completely, destructively. Frank is watching his industry die. The granary pier is crumbling. The canal needs dredging. Fewer ships come every year. His workers are lucky to get 2 days a week. So Frank made a deal with the devil. He lets a man named Spiros Vondas move containers through the port, no questions asked. The money goes to lobbyists, political contributions, and a stained glass window at the local church depicting dock workers. Frank is not getting rich. He is trying to save a way of life. The problem is Major Stan Valchek. He donated his own stained glass window to the same church, representing Baltimore police. Frank's window got the better spot. Valchek takes this as a personal insult. He goes to Deputy Commissioner Burrell and demands an investigation into the Stevedores Union. Not because of the dead women, not because of smuggling, because of a church window. That is how investigations start in Baltimore. Pettiness dressed up as police work. Hotshots Bunk and Freeman catch the case. They interview the crew of the Atlantic Light, the ship that delivered the container. Every sailor refuses to speak English, switching to French, Arabic, Hindi, German, anything to avoid answering questions. The first mate is more helpful. He tells them the crew took pay advances during the voyage, not for gambling, for the girls. The medical examiner finds that 3 of the women had breast implants from Budapest. Several had recent intercourse. These were trafficking victims, brought from Eastern Europe with promises of legitimate work, delivered to Baltimore in a shipping container. McNulty cannot let go of the girl he pulled from the harbor. He carries her photo. He gets a letter translated from her belongings and learns her first name. He visits federal detention centers trying to find someone who can identify her. He knows he is no longer a detective. He knows this is not his case. But the idea of that girl going into the ground with no name on her marker is something Jimmy McNulty cannot accept. Valchek gets his detail. Burrell, pulling the same trick he pulled in Season 1, fills it with the worst detectives available. Polk is drunk before 9 in the morning. The detail goes nowhere until Valchek forces Burrell to bring in Daniels. Hard cases. Daniels demands conditions. A promotion, his own major case unit, the chance to pick his people. He gets Kima Greggs, Lester Freeman, Perk, Carver, Prez, and eventually McNulty back from the Marine unit. Beatty Russell joins them as the Port Authority liaison, and she turns out to be one of the most quietly capable investigators in the entire show. Beatty Russell transforms during this season. She starts as a port cop who mostly checks seals on containers. She ends up running foot surveillance through parking garages and tracking suspects into hotels. Bunk and Freeman teach her. Freeman shows her how to use the port's computer system to track container movements, and Russell proves that she can do the work. When she tails Vondas to a hotel on foot, noting the floor and room number without being spotted, even Bunk is impressed. This woman was writing parking tickets 6 months ago. The Greek's organization is the most terrifying thing on this show because it barely exists. The Greek is not Greek. His name is not his name. Vondas is the face of the operation, meeting with Frank, handling Nick, arranging container movements. But the Greek himself sits in a diner eating breakfast and reading the newspaper while a human trafficking operation runs through his shipping containers. He is so far removed from the product that no wiretap will ever reach him. No informant will ever identify him. He exists in the space between law enforcement jurisdictions, and he has built his entire business model around the fact that nobody can agree on who should investigate him. Agent Koutras in the FBI Counterterrorism Division is the Greek's source inside the federal government. Whenever the investigation gets too close, Koutras makes a phone call and the Greek disappears. The show never explains how that relationship was built. It does not need to. The implication is clear enough. Some people are too useful to arrest. Nick Sobotka, Frank's nephew, is the bridge between the docks and the smuggling operation. He grew up on the docks. His grandfather worked the docks. His uncle Frank is the union man who keeps the whole operation breathing. Nick is the first person in his family who might actually leave, but the docks keep pulling him back. Not because he loves the work, because there is no other work. Nick is smart, careful, loves his daughter, wants to buy a house with his girlfriend Amy. But the docks do not pay enough, so Nick works with Vondas and the Greek, moving containers, stealing cargo, and eventually dealing drugs. He takes half his payment in cash and half in narcotics. Nick tells himself it is temporary. Everyone in the show tells themselves it is temporary. Ziggy Sobotka, Frank's son, is the opposite of Nick in every way. Loud, reckless, desperate to be taken seriously by men who will never take him seriously. Ziggy buys a $2,000 leather jacket with drug money and burns cash at the bar while his father watches in disgust. He tries to sell drugs for Cheese Wagstaff and gets beaten and robbed. Stringer's strategy in Season 2 is to transform the Barksdale organization into a business. He visits Proposition Joe and proposes a deal. Joe has the best product in Baltimore. The Barksdales have the best territory. Share the towers, split the profits. Joe agrees. It is the kind of deal that makes perfect economic sense and violates every rule Avon built the organization on. He also takes economics classes at Baltimore City Community College. He asks his professor about selling an inferior product in an aggressive marketplace. The professor tells him to decrease prices to build market share. Stringer goes back to the funeral home and teaches his dealers the same lesson, framing it as drug business strategy. He also calls a meeting at the funeral home that operates under Robert's Rules of Order. Shamrock takes minutes. Dealers raise their hands. Stringer shuts down crosstalk. It is the most absurd and somehow most logical thing in the entire season, because Stringer genuinely believes that the drug trade's problem is not moral. It is organizational. Meanwhile, in the prison, something much darker is happening. D'Angelo Barksdale is trying to get clean. He is reading The Great Gatsby in a book club and delivering analysis so sharp it makes the other inmates uncomfortable. He tells them a person can never escape his past no matter what fronts he puts up. He tells his mother Brianna to keep Avon and Stringer away from him. He tells his uncle he wants nothing to do with the family business. And then D'Angelo is found dead in the prison library, belt around his neck, staged to look like he took his own life. It was not. Stringer Bell ordered the hit. D'Angelo was becoming unpredictable, and unpredictable is the one thing Stringer cannot tolerate. D'Angelo was reading The Great Gatsby in a prison book club when the hit came. He had just given an analysis of the novel that stunned the room. He told the other inmates that Gatsby could never escape his past, that the front he built, the mansion, the parties, the new name, none of it mattered because the past always comes back. D'Angelo was talking about himself. He was talking about every person in the show who thinks they can leave the game and start over. The killer positioned the body to look self-inflicted. Belt around the neck, door handle, the state police investigated and ruled it a hanging, case closed. Omar testifies at Bird's trial. Morris Levy calls him a parasite. Omar tells the courtroom he and Levy are the same. Both of them live off the drug trade. The difference is, Omar uses a shotgun and Levy uses a briefcase. Bird gets life without parole. Avon calls D'Angelo's death weakness, the selfishness of a man who could not carry his weight. Whether Avon truly believes the staged scene, or whether he has figured out what Stringer did and chosen to look the other way, is a question the show deliberately leaves unanswered. Because in the Barksdale family, there are truths that serve the organization and truths that do not, and only one kind matters. The detail works the wire. Freeman and Beatty track containers through the port's computer system. Prez decodes the paper trail linking the union's political contributions to smuggling money. McNulty visits the medical examiner and digs into D'Angelo Barksdale's death. He finds 2 sets of ligature marks on D'Angelo's neck and a bruise on his back. Somebody held him down. Somebody who knew how to stage a scene. McNulty knows Stringer ordered the hit but cannot prove it. When Avon eventually finds out that Stringer gave away half their towers to Proposition Joe, the fracture between the two men becomes irreparable. But that is a Season 3 problem. Kima and Prez infiltrate the vice side of the operation, tracking Eastern European women being trafficked into strip clubs and forced into prostitution. McNulty goes undercover at an apartment building being used as a brothel because apparently his particular skill set makes him the obvious choice for that assignment. Ziggy tries to fence stolen cars for Double G Gleckas and gets cheated on the deal. Ziggy is the saddest character in Season 2, not because he is sympathetic. He is annoying, reckless, and self-destructive in ways that make you want to reach through the screen and shake him. But that is the point. Ziggy is Frank Sobotka's son, and Frank gave everything to the union and the docks and left nothing for his own child. Ziggy grew up watching his father pour his entire soul into an institution that was dying, and he internalized the message that he would never measure up. Every stupid stunt, every burned wad of cash, every doomed drug deal is Ziggy screaming for attention from men who will never take him seriously. Brother Muzone arrives in Baltimore. Avon brings him in from New York to protect the towers that Stringer just agreed to share with Joe. Muzone is an enforcer who reads Harper's and The Atlantic. He shoots Cheese Wagstaff with Ratshot for trying to push into Barksdale territory and tells him the next round will be a real bullet. Proposition Joe, who is usually the calmest man in any room, tells Cheese there is nothing he can do because Muzone has a reputation that extends far beyond Baltimore. When Glekas cheats him one final time, something breaks. Ziggy walks back in with a gun and shoots the man dead. Then he sits in his car and stares at his duck. Yes, Ziggy has a pet duck named Steve. He takes it to bars. He buys it shots. It is the most absurd subplot in the series and also somehow the most revealing. Ziggy takes care of a duck because there is nothing else in his life that needs him. Ziggy signs his confession in the interrogation room without a fight. He only makes one correction. Glekas said, "Don't shoot," not whatever the detectives wrote down. That is Ziggy. Even at the worst moment of his life, the details matter. The FBI has joined the investigation because Valchek threw a tantrum when his surveillance van went missing. The stevedores stole it and shipped it overseas in a container. It keeps showing up at ports around the world with new bumper stickers. Brisbane, Lisbon. It is the funniest running gag in a season that desperately needs the comic relief. The detail closes in. They raid the warehouse, but the Greeks' people have already cleaned it out. They arrest Sergey, Horseface, White Mike, and Frank himself. The FBI storms the Union Hall with cameras rolling. Valchek gloats. Frank says nothing. Joe manipulates Omar through Butchie into thinking Muzone was responsible for Brandon. Stringer confirms the lie. Omar finds Muzone and shoots him in the stomach, but Muzone tells Omar the truth. He had nothing to do with Brandon. Omar calls an ambulance and walks away. Now Omar knows Stringer lied to his face, and that lie will get Stringer killed in Season 3. Omar walks away from Muzone bleeding in the alley and calls 911 because Omar has a code. He does not kill those who are not in the game, and Muzone was not lying. That phone call saves Muzone's life and sets up one of the most unlikely partnerships in television history. Beatty Russell approaches Frank privately. She tells him there are different kinds of wrong. She tells him he is better than the people he has gotten involved with, and Frank agrees to cooperate. He asks for two things: straight probation for himself and Nick, and for Ziggy to be transferred to a safer prison. He will not give up Union men. That is his line. But the Greek has a mole inside the FBI. Agent Koutras, a counterterrorism contact, has been feeding information to the Greeks' organization throughout the entire investigation. The moment Frank agrees to become an informant, Koutras phones it in. Frank goes to meet with Vondas and the Greek. He never comes back. His body is pulled from the harbor by Claude Diggins the next morning. The stevedores recognize him immediately. Frank Sobotka died trying to save a way of life that was already dead. The port was never coming back. The politicians were never going to dredge the canal. The lobbyists took his money and smiled and did nothing. Frank knew all of this on some level. He knew it the moment he started taking money from Vondas. But he kept going because stopping meant admitting that everything his father and grandfather built on those docks was gone. And Frank could not be the one to turn out the lights. His death is the quietest gut punch in the series. No gunfight, no confrontation, just a body in the water and a union that will never recover. Before he died, Frank met with his brother Louis. Louis was angry, not about the smuggling, about the boys. Nick was dealing drugs. Ziggy was in prison for murder. Louis told Frank that the theft from the docks was supposed to be a means of sustaining their way of life, not a gateway into serious crime. Frank had no answer for that. Frank went to work one last time before his meeting with the Greek. He borrowed a union card from Little Big Roy so he could work a ship. The stevedores were confused. The secretary-treasurer does not work ships. But Frank needed to feel the labor in his hands one more time. He needed to remember what he was fighting for. His lobbyist, Bruce DiBiago, told him the truth over their last meeting. Every political move the union had made was reversed by the arrest. Politicians who had taken Frank's money were running from the association. Frank delivered one last box of cash and told Bruce that the problem with this country is that they used to build things, make things. Now they just put their hands in the next guy's pocket. That is Frank Sobotka's epitaph, a man who believed in work, in building something real, and the city tore it all down to build condominiums. Nick turns himself in. He identifies the Greek in a photograph but cannot give them a real name. Nobody can. The Greek's nationality is false. His name is false. Everything about him is designed to be untraceable. The Greek and Vandas board a plane. The detail arrives at their hotel minutes too late. Vandas leaves a note for Nick at the diner. It says to call if he needs anything, because the Greek's organization does not end. It does not get arrested. It relocates. It finds a new port, a new union, a new Frank Sobotka who is desperate enough to take the deal. The machine keeps running. The only things that change are the people it grinds through. The detail cannot touch the Greek. They cannot touch Vandas. The biggest criminals in the entire investigation walk away because they operate between jurisdictions, between agencies, between countries. Frank is dead. Ziggy is in prison. Nick is cooperating with nobody left to cooperate against. The stevedores' union is finished. The season ends with a montage. U.S. Marshals close the Union Hall. Politicians break ground on condominiums that will replace the grain pier. Proposition Joe takes delivery of drugs from the back of a truck. The same truck also delivers a group of disoriented women. The stevedores drink on a street corner with nowhere to go. And Nick stands at the docks in the rain, watching everything his uncle fought for disappear. Frank Sobotka wanted to save the docks. The docks could not be saved, and the city does not care. Season 3 opens with a demolition. The Franklin Terrace towers come down in a cloud of dust and rubble while Mayor Clarence Royce gives a speech about reform. Body, Poot, and Puddin stand on the sidewalk watching the only world they have ever known collapse into itself. The towers are gone, the pit is gone, and the Barksdale organization has to figure out how to sell drugs without territory. Stringer Bell has a plan. He always has a plan. While Avon sits in prison, Stringer has been transforming the organization into something that looks less like a drug empire and more like a corporation. He holds meetings at the funeral home with Robert's Rules of Order. Shamrock takes minutes. Dealers raise their hands to speak. Stringer wants to stop fighting over corners and start supplying other dealers with product. Market share instead of murder. Economics instead of enforcement. Avon sees it differently. From his prison cell, he tells Stringer they need territory. They need reputation. Without those, they are nothing. He sends his lieutenants to claim new corners, including one run by a young dealer named Marlo Stanfield. Marlo Stanfield is the future of the drug game in Baltimore, and nobody realizes it yet. He is young, he is patient, and he is completely without sentiment. Avon built his empire on loyalty and reputation. Stringer tried to build his on economics and legitimate investment. Marlo builds his on fear. Pure, undiluted, absolute fear. He does not flash money. He does not run clubs. He does not attend basketball games or throw parties. Marlo operates like a ghost. His bodyguard, Chris Partlow, is a professional killer with the temperament of an accountant. His other enforcer, Snoop, is a young woman who talks about nail guns the way other people talk about weather. Together, they are the most efficient killing operation Baltimore has ever produced. He is cold in a way that Avon never was. When Bodie rolls up to Marlo's corner and tries to set up shop, Marlo does not argue. He does not threaten. He just stands there, refuses to make eye contact, and tells Bodie to move on while he is still being polite. That is more terrifying than any gun. Dennis Cuddy Wise walks out of prison after 14 years. He was once a legendary soldier in the drug game. Avon gives him a number to call for a coming home gift. Cuddy tries to go back to the life. He picks up a package. He stands on a corner, and he realizes he cannot do it anymore. 14 years changed something inside him. The game did not wait for Cuddy. It moved on without him. The Major Crimes Unit, now led by Daniels as a permanent detail, is working a wiretap on Proposition Joe's people. They intercept Cheese Wagstaff talking about killing someone named Dog. The detail assumes a murder. They gear up, they bust in. Cheese breaks down crying in interrogation, and the detectives discover that Dog was literally a dog. Cheese shot his own dog after it lost a fight. The most they can charge him with is animal cruelty. That is the kind of show this is. Months of wire work, a dramatic raid, and the target is guilty of shooting a pit bull. McNulty is digging into D'Angelo Barksdale's death. The medical examiner found 2 sets of ligature marks on D'Angelo's neck and a bruise on his back. It was no accident. McNulty knows Stringer ordered the hit but cannot prove it. Danette will not talk to him. The case goes cold. Daniels is separated from Marla now. He is sleeping on a cot in his office at the detail. When the Cheese arrest falls apart, Perlman stays to commiserate. Daniels takes her home to his barely furnished apartment. They start something that will last for the rest of the series. 2 professionals who understand each other's work in a city that grinds relationships into dust. Meanwhile, Major Howard Bunny Colvin is running the Western District and watching everything fail. The war on drugs is not working. His officers arrest the same corner boys every week. Crime stats demand creative accounting. At a ComStat meeting, when Burrell demands district commanders reduce violent crime by 5% and keep murders under 275, Colvin asks the question nobody else will. You can reclassify an aggravated assault, unfiltered found a robbery, but how do you make a body disappear? Nobody answers him. Colvin is months from retirement. He has nothing left to lose. Kima arrives home to find Cheryl asleep with their new baby and turns around and goes back out drinking. The distance between Kima and Cheryl has been growing since season 1. Kima loves police work the way McNulty loves police work, completely, destructively, and that kind of devotion does not leave room for the life Cheryl wants. Colvin does something unprecedented. He designates 3 empty abandoned blocks in his district as free zones. No arrests for drug possession or distribution within those boundaries. The dealers can sell, the customers can buy, and everywhere else in the Western District becomes clean. The officers call it Hamsterdam. Hamsterdam works. Violent crime in the Western District drops dramatically. The residential blocks where families live become quiet for the first time in years. Public health workers and needle exchanges move into the zones. Citizens attend town hall meetings, and for once, they do not spend the entire time screaming about drug corners. But Hamsterdam is also a nightmare. The zones themselves become open-air markets filled with dependency, filth, and desperation. Bubbles and Johnny end up in Hamsterdam. For Bubbles, it is a revelation and a horror at the same time. He can buy his supply without looking over his shoulder. He does not have to hide from the police. But he also sees what dependency looks like when there is nothing left to hide behind. Rows of people sitting on broken furniture and abandoned lots, using in broad daylight. No pretense, no hustle. Just the habit, stripped of every excuse and every distraction. And public health workers from Johns Hopkins set up needle exchanges in the free zones. Social workers appear. For the users, it is the first time anyone in an official capacity has treated them like human beings instead of criminals. But for the residents near the zones, it is a nightmare. And for the dealers who now have a legal market, the rules that used to govern the trade evaporate. The corners had a structure. Hamsterdam has chaos. Colvin knows this. He visits the zones at night and sees what he has created. He talks to the deacon about it. The deacon, a community elder who connects people across every boundary in Baltimore, tells Colvin that what he is doing takes courage. But courage and wisdom are not always the same thing. Colvin knows what he has created. He knows it is not sustainable. He also knows it is the most honest thing any police commander in Baltimore has done in decades. Avon gets released early after setting up a corrupt corrections officer named Tilghman. He poisoned the drug supply in the prison, killed several inmates, and then informed on the officer who smuggled the drugs in. Cold, calculated. Exactly what you would expect from a man who learned the game from the ground up. The moment Avon walks out, the tension between him and Stringer becomes visible. Avon wants war with Marlo. Stringer wants peace and profit. Avon builds a crew of muscle. Stringer makes deals with Prop Joe. They are running the same organization in completely opposite directions. Stringer keeps trying to build his legitimate empire. He is buying property, taking economics classes, meeting with Senator Clay Davis about development deals. Davis takes hundreds of thousands of Stringer's money and delivers nothing in return. When Stringer threatens him, Davis laughs. Because Stringer understands supply and demand, but he does not understand how Baltimore politics actually works. You cannot muscle a state senator the way you muscle a corner boy. Cuddy stands on a corner holding a gun. A young dealer from Marlo's crew is standing 10 feet away. All Cuddy has to do is pull the trigger. Avon's people are watching. This is his audition, his return to the life. He puts the gun down, walks away. He goes back to Avon and tells him he is not built for this anymore. Avon, to his credit, lets him go. He tells Cuddy that the game is out there for anyone who wants to play. Cuddy does not want to play. Avon comes home from prison with a single-minded focus, territory, reputation, the thing Stringer has been dismantling for 2 years. Avon wants the corners back. He wants Marlo Stanfield pushed out or put down. He wants the name Barksdale to mean what it used to mean. He hires muscle, real muscle, not business partners, not economic thinkers, soldiers. He prepares for war the way he always has, by putting guns in the right hands and making sure the people holding them understand the consequences of failure. Stringer tries to reason with him. He shows Avon the books, the profits from the Joe partnership, the real estate investments, the campaign contributions. Stringer has been building a bridge to legitimacy, and Avon is about to burn it down for a few city blocks of drug territory. But Avon sees something Stringer cannot. The streets have rules. If you give up territory without a fight, every crew in Baltimore will come for yours next. Reputation is currency, and Stringer has been spending it like it is worthless. The two men who built the Barksdale organization together are now running it in opposite directions. Avon toward the streets, Stringer toward the boardroom, and they are both betraying each other at the same time. Stringer's real estate development was a scam from the start, not because Stringer was scamming anyone, because Senator Clay Davis was scamming him. Davis took hundreds of thousands of Stringer's laundered money and delivered nothing. No permits, no zoning changes, no political access. When Stringer confronted him, Davis laughed in his face, because Stringer understood microeconomics, but he did not understand how power actually works in Baltimore. You cannot threaten a state senator with violence the way you threaten a corner boy. The rules are different, the consequences are different, and the people at the top of the legitimate world are just as ruthless as the people at the top of the drug world. They just use different weapons. Stringer went to Avon's man, slimmed Slim Charles and asked him to have Clay Davis killed. Slim Charles, a street soldier who has been in the game his entire life, looked at Stringer and told him that if you want to shoot a senator, you better not miss. That is the moment Stringer realized he was trapped between two worlds and belonged to neither. Cuddy finds another path. He opens a boxing gym in the neighborhood with help from Avon's money and the Deacon. Kids start showing up. Some of them are corner boys. Some of them just need somewhere to go after school. He teaches them to fight. More importantly, he shows them that a man can walk away from the game and build something else. Councilman Tommy Carcetti watches the Hamsterdam experiment and sees an opportunity. A white politician in a majority black city running on crime stats and institutional failure. His campaign manager, Teresa D'Agostino, tells him he has no chance. But Carcetti is smarter than he looks. He is building alliances, learning the machine, and the machine is about to have a very bad year. Everything converges at once. Stringer sells Avon to the police. He gives Colvin information about Avon's guns and safe house, thinking a weapons charge will put Avon away and leave the organization to Stringer. At the same time, Avon sells Stringer to Omar and brother Muzone. Both men have reason to want Stringer dead. Omar because Stringer lied about who was responsible for Brandon. Muzone because Stringer set Omar on him back in season 2. And here's the thing about Stringer and Avon, they love each other. That is not a metaphor. These two men grew up together. They built everything together. They survived prison and murder charges and federal investigations and the daily grind of running an empire that could end in a casket or a cell on any given Tuesday. When they sit on the balcony of Avon's apartment and talk about the old days, there is genuine warmth between them. Stringer tells Avon about the real estate deals. Avon tells Stringer about the soldiers he is recruiting. They are both lying. They are both hiding the betrayal they have already set in motion. And they both know, on some level, that this is the last real conversation they will ever have. Best friends since childhood. Partners in the most successful drug operation West Baltimore has ever seen. And in the end, each one of them is the other's executioner. Omar has been waiting for this moment since season 1, since Brandon was killed and left on the hood of a car, since Stringer lied to his face about who was responsible. Omar does not forget. He does not forgive. He just waits. And when the right moment comes, he moves with a patience that terrifies everyone around him. Brother Muzone has his own debt to collect. Stringer set him up to be shot by Omar. He manipulated Proposition Joe into sending Omar after Muzone by lying about who killed Brandon. Muzone took a bullet in the stomach because of that lie. He came back to Baltimore for one reason. Omar and Muzone meet in an alley. Two men with guns pointed at each other. They share a common enemy. They share information. And then they hunt Stringer Bell together. They find him at his copy shop, standing in front of his real estate development plans. Blueprints for condominiums. A legitimate future he almost built. Muzone walks in first, then Omar. Stringer tells them to go ahead. He knows why they are there, and when Omar asks if Stringer has any last words, Stringer just says, "Get on with it." They shoot him dead in the building that was supposed to be his way out of the game. The man who ran Robert's Rules of Order meetings and took economics classes and tried to turn drug money into real estate never makes it to the other side because the game does not let you leave. Not like that. The detail raids Avon's safe house. They find the guns. They find the muscle. They arrest Avon Barksdale for the second time. When Avon sees what happened, he knows Stringer gave him up, but Stringer is already dead. There's no score left to settle. Slim Charles, Avon's chief enforcer, does not believe the story that Marlo killed Stringer. He tells Avon that even if it is a lie, they fight on the lie, because in this world, the story matters more than the truth. Hamsterdam gets discovered by the press. A city councilman named Tommy Carcetti gets tipped off. He walks through the free zones with a camera crew and his face tells the entire story. The mayor, Clarence Royce, finds out next. Burrell finds out last. Everyone scrambles to protect themselves. Nobody talks about whether the experiment was working. The mayor's office panics. Colvin takes the fall. He is forced to retire without his pension bump. The zones are shut down. The drug trade floods back into the residential neighborhoods overnight. Everything Colvin tried to build is destroyed in a single news cycle. But for a moment, it worked. And that is the tragedy. Colvin's punishment is complete. He loses his pension bump. He loses his rank. He is forced out of the department he gave 30 years to. The other commanders watch and learn the lesson Baltimore's institutions always teach. Do not innovate. Do not take risks. Do not try to solve the problem if solving it might embarrass someone above you. Colvin broke the rules, and for a few weeks, his district was the safest in the city. Nobody thanks him for it. The season ends with Avon in handcuffs, Stringer in the morgue, Marlo standing on his corner with no one left to challenge him, and Carcetti announcing his run for mayor. And the game keeps going. Dennis Cuddy Wise, the man who walked away from the drug trade after 14 years in prison, is running his boxing gym full-time now. Kids from the corners come in after school. Some of them are Marlo's dealers. Some of them are just kids with nowhere else to go. When Hamsterdam shuts down and the drug trade floods back into the residential neighborhoods, some of Cuddy's boxers stop coming because there is work for them on the corners again. Cuddy goes out and finds them. He does not lecture. He just tells them the gym is open whenever they want to come back. Cuddy is the show's proof that the cycle can be broken one person person at a time, not with policy or politics or institutional reform. Just a man with a heavy bag and the patience to wait for a kid to walk through the door. If you have made it this far, you already know this show does not pull punches. We are not even halfway done. Seasons 4 and 5 change everything. Hit subscribe so you do not miss a single video and let us keep going. The show turns its lens on the Baltimore public school system, and it does this by following 4 8th grade boys through a single school year. Namond Bryce, son of Weebay, living off his father's reputation and his mother Delonda's expectations that he will follow in the family business. Michael Lee, quiet, fierce, raising his little brother Bug in a house where the adults have failed every responsibility. Randy Wagstaff, a hustler with a good heart and a foster mother who actually cares about him. And Duquan Dookie Weems, the poorest kid in the neighborhood, wearing dirty clothes and carrying the smell of a home where the adults steal anything worth having. These 4 boys are not statistics. They are people, and the system is about to process them like they are nothing. The season opens with Snoop buying the nail gun at a hardware store. The salesman explains the specifications. She tips him generously and walks out with the tool that will seal over a dozen people into empty buildings across the Western District. It is one of the most unsettling cold opens in the entire series. On the streets, Marlo Stanfield has perfected his system. His enforcers Chris Partlow and Snoop use the nail gun to seal bodies inside vacant row houses. They coat the corpses in quicklime and plastic sheeting. The bodies do not decompose quickly enough to smell. Nobody reports them missing because in West Baltimore, people disappear all the time. Marlo does not make noise. He does not brag. He does not use phones carelessly. When someone becomes a problem, Chris and Snoop handle it quietly. When Lex kills Marlo's corner boss Fruit over a girl, Marlo does not retaliate loudly. He has little Kevin pay Randy to deliver a message luring Lex to a meeting spot. Snoop and Partlow are waiting. Lex disappears. Another nail gun. Another vacant house. Randy does not know what he helped set up, but he knows something happened. Namond lives in a nice house with nice things because his mother Delonda spends Brianna Barksdale's support money freely. But that money comes with expectations. Delonda pushes Namond toward the corners the way other parents push their kids toward college. She visits Weebay in prison and complains that Namond is not applying himself to the drug business. Weebay, serving life for multiple murders, asks about his fish. Michael is raising Bug alone in a house where the adults are either absent or dangerous. He is the parentified child. He cooks the meals. He gets Bug ready for school. He does the homework with him. When Marlo's Lieutenant Monk hands out cash to neighborhood kids to build goodwill, every child takes the money. Michael refuses. He just stares at Marlo until Marlo walks away. That refusal is not defiance. It is survival instinct. Michael knows that free money always comes with a price, and it catches Marlo's attention because Marlo recognizes something in Michael. He sees himself, a kid who does not trust adults, a kid who has learned to survive by keeping everyone at a distance. Marlo tells Chris to keep an eye on Michael, not to recruit him, to study him, because Michael is exactly the kind of soldier Marlo wants, someone with nothing left to lose. Randy is a natural hustler. He sells snacks at school, he runs small scams. His foster mother, Miss Anna, actually cares about him, which is rare enough in his world to feel like a miracle. Randy has the kind of energy that, in a different zip code, would make him class president. In West Baltimore, it makes him useful to people who need errands run without questions asked. Dookie has nothing. His parents are users who sell his school clothes for their next hit. He arrives at school in the same dirty outfit every day. The assistant principal quietly arranges for a box of donated clothes to be delivered to his house. She tells the student delivering them to give them directly to Dookie and not to any of the adults, because the adults in Dookie's house will pawn anything they can carry. Roland Przybylewski, the same Prez who shot the office wall and blinded a kid and cracked the pager codes, is now a math teacher at Edward Tillman Middle School. He is cleaning gum from under the desks and listening to Johnny Cash while he prepares his classroom. The teaching seminar he attends is as useless as the police terrorism briefing the officers get across town. Same institutional dysfunction, different building. Tommy Carcetti prepares for the mayoral debate. The campaign season is heating up, and Carcetti is building alliances with State Delegate Odell Watkins to split the black vote between the incumbent Royce and challenger Tony Gray. On the street, Marlo's authority is absolute. He steals a lollipop from a corner store just to prove he can. When the security guard confronts him about it later, Marlo has Chris and Snoop kill the man. Not for the confrontation, for the disrespect. That is how Marlo operates. Any challenge, no matter how small, gets answered with a body. Chris and Snoop keep working Michael. They offer him a job, not pushing drugs, but something more permanent. Michael resists, but the walls are closing in. His home life is a disaster, and Marlo's organization is the only structure offering him anything that looks like safety. Colvin, now retired from the police force, gets involved in an academic research project studying at-risk kids. He develops a theory about stoop kids and corner kids. Stoop kids still have someone at home. They sit on stoops. They play. They have a tether to childhood. Corner kids have already been pulled into the game. They stand on corners. They watch. They wait. The line between the two is razor thin, and once a kid crosses it, almost nobody comes back. Tommy Carcetti wins the Democratic primary for mayor. His victory speech is optimistic. His first day in office is a reality check. Brianna Barksdale cuts off Delonda and Namond from the family support money. With the Barksdale organization collapsed, there is no more income. Delonda tells Namond he has to start dealing for real. She takes him to Bodie and uses Weebay's name to get him a package. Carcetti walks into the police department and discovers that the crime stats have been manipulated for years. Burl and Rawls have been reclassifying crimes, unfounding robberies, and using every statistical trick available to make the numbers look better than they are. Carcetti is horrified. He fires the police spokesman and demands honest numbers. For about 3 weeks, it looks like Baltimore might actually get a mayor who cares more about the truth than the optics. The special education program that Colvin runs with a University of Maryland researcher pulls the most disruptive students out of the mainstream classroom. Namond, Darnell, Zenobia, and a handful of others sit in a room where the rules are different. The researcher wants to study them. Colvin wants to reach them. The two goals are not always the same thing. Prez is learning how to teach. His first weeks are chaos, but he discovers something. He is good at this. The same pattern recognition that made him a genius at cracking codes makes him effective in the classroom. He learns his students' names. He figures out what motivates them. He connects. He uses dice games to teach probability. He uses the corner economy to explain percentages. When a student cannot solve a word problem about trains, Prez rephrases it in terms of drug re-ups and the kid gets it immediately. The knowledge is there. The system just refuses to meet the students where they are. The other teachers know the score. They tell Prez to keep the rules simple. Make the kids double space their work so it is easier to read. Keep the windows closed so the classroom stays warm and the kids get drowsy. Do not try to change everything at once. Just survive the year. Prez survives. More than that, he connects with kids like Dookie and Randy in ways that matter. He becomes the adult in their lives who actually sees them. And when the administration pushes standardized test preparation that turns his classroom into a memorization factory, Prez watches the light go out of his students' eyes and understands that the school system and the police department have more in common than anyone wants to admit. Both institutions measure the wrong things and call it accountability. The Stanfield investigation hits a wall. Freeman has been building a wire on Marlo's crew, but Lieutenant Marimau, installed by Rawls to sabotage the unit, runs the investigation into the ground. Herc, now working as a sergeant, stumbles into a mess of his own making. He walks into a room at City Hall and finds Mayor Royce in a compromising position with his secretary. He signs out a surveillance camera under false pretenses and loses it on the street. He creates a fictional informant named Fuzzy Dunlop to justify an illegal bug he placed in a tennis ball, which got thrown into traffic. He pays his cousin to pose for the informant's photo. Every corner Herc has ever cut is building toward a reckoning. When Marimau discovers the fake informant and the missing camera, Herc's career in the Baltimore Police Department effectively ends. He later turns up working for Morris Levy, the defense attorney, running background checks and tapping his old police contacts for information. Herc takes his incompetence from one side of the justice system to the other and keeps failing upward. Bubbles is trying to survive. He has a young protege named Sherrod, a kid who cannot do basic math and sleeps on the street. Bubbles gets Sherrod enrolled in school, pretending to be his uncle. He buys and sells junk from a shopping cart. He is still using drugs, trying to hide it from Sherrod. A corner boy keeps robbing and beating Bubbles. Every day, takes his money, takes his goods, beats him for sport. Bubbles reports it to Kima. He reports it to anyone who will listen. Nobody helps, because in Baltimore, the beating of a street user does not register as a real crime. Michael makes his choice. His stepfather has returned home. The show never says exactly what the man did to Michael, but the implications are clear in every flinch, every refusal of physical contact from adult men. Every time Michael positions himself between Bug and a closed door, Michael goes to Marlo. And Chris Partlow, who normally kills with cold efficiency, beats Michael's stepfather to death with his bare hands in an alley. The camera stays on Chris's face, and what you see there is not professional violence. It is personal. Chris knows. After that, Michael belongs to Marlo. He becomes an enforcer. Then the governor offers Carcetti state funding to cover the school deficit. The catch is that accepting the money would mean admitting he cannot handle the city's budget, which would destroy his chances of running for governor. Carcetti refuses the money. He chooses his political future over the children in Baltimore's public schools. Norman Wilson, his deputy campaign manager turned advisor, tells him he made the wrong call. Carcetti knows. He just does not care enough to change course. The man who ran on reform has become the system he promised to dismantle. It took less than a year. The season's other axis is the vacant house investigation. Freeman discovers the bodies in the vacant houses. The search begins in a single sector of the Western District. Officers check every vacant building sealed with non-standard materials. Anything nailed shut with construction-grade fasteners instead of the standard housing department boards gets reported. The first body is behind drywall. Then another, then another. Daniels sets up a staging area in the gymnasium of a disused school. It was his old school. The forensics teams work each scene for hair, fiber, bullet casings, and footprints. Freeman tells Kima that the terrifying part is not how many bodies they have found. It is that they are only searching one sector from one district. There could be dozens more across Baltimore. The ballistics come back. 9mm casings at every scene. The same caliber, the same method. Quicklime, plastic sheeting, nail guns. Everybody tells the same story. Marlo Stanfield's organization has been operating a murder factory in plain sight for over a year, and the police department did not notice because in West Baltimore, people disappear and nobody reports them missing. The search expands across the Western District. 17 corpses, all killed the same way, all sealed in with nail guns and quicklime. The detail arrests Chris and Snoop on a weapons charge and collects DNA samples, but the case against Marlo himself is thin. Randy's involvement in Lex's disappearance reaches the wrong ears. A rumor spreads that he talked to the police. His foster mother's house is firebombed. She is critically burned. Randy ends up in a group home where the other kids beat him on his first night. Sergeant Carver tries everything. He offers to foster Randy himself. He begs social services. He pulls every string he has. None of it works. The system does not have a mechanism for saving one kid. Carver drops Randy off and walks back to his car. He sits there and screams. Body Broaddus, who has been on this show since the first episode, sits on his corner and watches everything he understands about the game collapse. Little Kevin is dead. The corners belong to Marlo. The rules he grew up with no longer apply. When McNulty approaches him, Bodie does something he never thought he would do. He offers to talk. McNulty tells Bodie he is a soldier. It is the only compliment anyone has ever given him that means anything. Bodie has been in this show since the pilot. He was the pawn in D'Angelo's chess lesson who said a pawn could become a queen if it made it to the other side. He never made it to the other side, but he stood on his corner until the end. That night, Marlo's crew kills Bodie on his own corner. Poot runs, Spider runs, Bodie refuses to move. He fires into the darkness until O-Dog steps out of a doorway and shoots him in the head. McNulty reads the report the next morning and throws it across the room. He goes to Daniels and requests a transfer back to Major Crimes. Because somebody has to answer for this. Bubbles, desperate to stop the beatings, puts rat poison in a vial of product and hides it in his coat, planning to let his tormentor steal it. But Sherrod finds the vial first. He uses it. Sherrod dies in the middle of the night while Bubbles sleeps next to him. Bubbles walks into the homicide unit and confesses to murder. He is in withdrawal, vomiting, shaking. When the detectives leave the room to clean up, Bubbles tries to end his own life. They stop him in time. Sergeant Landsman, of all people, tells Norris to let Bubbles go. He tells him to send Bubbles to rehab because even Landsman can see that this man has punished himself more than any court ever could. That is the moment that destroys you. Not a character being evil, a character trying to protect himself and accidentally killing the only person who depended on him. Namond gets rescued. Colvin sees what Delonda is doing to him, pushing a child into the drug trade because that is what Bryce men do. Colvin visits Weebay in prison and tells him the truth. Your son is bright, he has potential, but he will not survive the streets. Weeby, the same man who confessed to 5 murders to protect his organization, tells Delonda to let Namond go. When she resists, Weebay threatens her with his reputation. Namond moves in with Colvin and his wife. Dookie has nowhere to go. He is too old for Prez's classroom and too young for the real world. He ends up on Michael's corner, selling drugs with Poot and Kennard. Prez tracks him down and sees his former student standing in the street. There is nothing he can do. Michael's first kill is a drug dealer, shot at close range while Chris watches from the car. The season ends with a montage. Namond eating breakfast in Colvin's home, ready for school, Randy beaten in a group home, Dookie on a corner, Michael handing off a murder weapon, Prez watching from a distance, Carcetti in a budget meeting, Carver moving kids off a stoop. 4 boys, 1 school year, 1 of them gets saved, the other 3 do not. Season 5, Episode 1, More with Less. The final season opens with the city broke and the police department bleeding. Mayor Carcetti refused the governor's money for schools because accepting it would have cost him political capital. Now the bills are coming due. The police department cannot pay overtime. Vehicles are not being serviced. Officers are doing the same work with fewer resources, and the Major Crimes Unit, the only team capable of bringing down Marlo Stanfield, gets shut down for budget reasons. Daniels breaks the news to his detectives. Freeman and Sidnor get reassigned to the state's attorney's office to work the Clay Davis corruption case. McNulty and Greggs go back to homicide. Dozerman gets tactical. The unit that has been the backbone of every major investigation since season 1 is dismantled because the city cannot afford it. McNulty sits in the homicide unit staring at his old desk and says he wonders what it would be like to work for a real police department. Marlo notices the surveillance disappear. He tells Chris and Snoop to get back to work. Bodies start dropping again. Meanwhile, the show introduces its final institution, the Baltimore Sun. City desk editor Gus Haynes runs the newsroom with integrity and instinct. He catches stories. He corrects grammar. He pushes his reporters to do real journalism. And above him, the paper's management is cutting staff, closing bureaus, and telling everyone to do more with less. The Sun storyline is The Wire's commentary on itself. David Simon worked at the Baltimore Sun for 13 years before he created the show. He watched the paper cut staff, close bureaus, promote people who fabricated stories, and punish reporters who pushed back. Season 5 is personal for him in a way the other seasons are not. And you can feel it. The anger is sharper. The satire is more pointed. Gus Haynes is the best editor in the building, and he cannot stop what is happening above him, because the people making decisions have never set foot in the neighborhoods they claim to cover. A show about systems that fail is now showing you how the system that is supposed to hold those systems accountable, the press, is also failing. Season 5, Episode 2, Unconfirmed Reports. And then McNulty does something unforgivable. He finds a dead homeless man and stages the body, adds bite marks, ties a red ribbon around the wrist, fabricates a serial killer who targets the homeless. He calls it in. He writes it up. He builds a fiction so compelling that the media picks it up, and the mayor's office panics, and suddenly there is funding. Over time, resources, everything the department said it could not afford for 17 dead bodies in vacant houses, it can now afford because a fake serial killer is generating headlines. McNulty has crossed every line, and he knows it. The man who once told Judge Phelan the truth about the Barksdale organization because nobody else would is now the man building an entire investigation on a lie. The irony is not lost on him. It is not lost on the audience either. Season 1, McNulty lit a fuse because the system was ignoring dead bodies. Season 5, McNulty invents dead bodies because the system is still ignoring them. The distance between those two acts is the measure of what Baltimore does to the people who try to fix it. But he tells himself it is the only way to get Marlo Stanfield, not for attribution. Freeman, the man who spent 13 years in the pawn shop unit for doing his job too well, becomes McNulty's co-conspirator. Because Freeman looks at the vacant house murders and the political corruption and the institutional failure, and he decides that the only way to do real police work in Baltimore is to cheat the system that refuses to let real police work happen. Bunk wants no part of it. Bunk Moreland has been McNulty's best friend since the first episode. They drink together, they work cases together, they speak in a shorthand that nobody else in homicide can follow. But Bunk draws a line that McNulty cannot. Bunk is a natural police. Real murder police. And real murder police do not invent cases. They work the ones in front of them. When Bunk catches a real case, a triple homicide in East Baltimore, he works it clean. Old school, witness statements, forensics, legwork. He solves it because that is what actual detective work looks like. And he does it while his best friend is committing fraud in the office next door. He tells McNulty that what he is doing is wrong. That real police do not fabricate cases, that the ends do not justify the means. Bunk is the moral center of this show. He has been since the first season, and when his best friend crosses the line, Bunk steps back and lets him fall. Beatty Russell sees it too. She watches McNulty come home late, drunk, distant, and she recognizes the pattern. The work consuming the man, the lies building on top of each other. She has seen this before with other cops. She has seen it with McNulty before, and she knows that this time there may not be anything left to save. Scott Templeton is a reporter who wants a Pulitzer. When the homeless serial killer story breaks, Templeton sees his opportunity. He starts embellishing, then fabricating. He invents quotes. He claims to have witnessed an attempted kidnapping that never happened. Haynes suspects Templeton is lying, but management does not want to hear it because the story is generating attention, and attention is what keeps the paper alive. Season 5, Episode 4, Transitions. Marlo makes his move on Proposition Joe. He goes to Jessup Prison and finds Avon Barksdale waiting instead of Sergei Malatov. Avon is amused. He tells Marlo that access to Sergei, and through Sergei to the Greeks' drug supply, goes through him. The price is $100,000 to Brianna Barksdale, West Baltimore loyalty, or at least the appearance of it. And then he has Proposition Joe murdered. Joe saw it coming. He told Slim Charles weeks before that Marlo was a different kind of animal. Not smarter, not tougher, just emptier. Marlo does not want what Joe built. He does not want the relationships, the diplomacy, the careful balance of power that kept the co-op running for years. Marlo wants submission. And submission is the one thing Proposition Joe never learned how to give. The man who survived every war in Baltimore by being the smartest person at the table finally met someone who did not care about intelligence. Marlo cares about power, pure, undiluted. He does not want Joe's advice. He does not want Joe's wisdom. He wants Joe's connection. And once he has it, Joe becomes unnecessary. Cheese, Joe's own nephew, helped arrange the meeting that led to his uncle's execution. The same Cheese who sat at Joe's right hand at every co-op meeting. The same Cheese who Joe bailed out of trouble a dozen times. Blood means nothing in the drug trade, not when there is money on the other side of the betrayal. Chris Partlow walks into Joe's kitchen, and Joe, the man who survived every war by being smarter than everyone else, tells Chris to do it somewhere other than his face. He does not want his people to see him like that. React quotes, Marlo gets the connection. He meets Vondas. He secures his own supply. Vondas teaches him how to communicate without phones, how to layer his personal calls to look innocent, how to contact the Greeks organization. Marlo has replaced Proposition Joe in every way that matters, and the man who taught him the game is already cold. Omar comes back. He learns that Chris and Snoop tortured and killed Butchie, his banker and closest friend. Omar reclaims his shotgun and vows to work them until there is nothing left. He starts hunting Marlo's people, robbing their stash houses, terrorizing their corners. Season 5, Episode 6, The Dickensian Aspect. Omar comes back from retirement for one reason. Marlo stole from him, and in Omar's world, that cannot stand. He walks through West Baltimore with a shotgun, robbing Marlo's stash houses, terrorizing his crews. He destroys their money. He shoots their dealers in the legs and tells them to send Marlo a message. The legend grows. Kids on corners tell stories about Omar the way kids in other neighborhoods talk about athletes. But this is not a hero's story. Omar is limping. He is aging. He fashions a crutch from a broom handle after jumping from a fourth-floor balcony. The world he dominated has moved on. Marlo takes over the co-op meeting and blames Omar for the murders of Proposition Joe and Hungry Man. He doubles the bounty on Omar's head. Nobody in the room believes him, but nobody challenges him either. That is the difference between Marlo and everyone who came before him. Prop Joe earned loyalty. Avon demanded respect. Marlo demands silence, and silence is all he gets. Season 5, Episode 7, Took. The Clay Davis corruption case goes to trial. Davis is charged with misappropriating state funds, stealing from nonprofits meant to serve the poor, and lying about all of it. Perlman and Bond build a solid case with documentation and testimony. And Davis takes the stand and performs the greatest piece of political theater Baltimore has ever seen. He weeps, he shouts, he invokes his grandmother. He tells the jury that every dollar he took went back into the community. He tells them that a black politician in America is always going to be targeted by the system. The jury acquits him. Freeman watches the verdict and says nothing, because the system worked exactly the way it was designed to work. It just was not designed to deliver justice. Omar traps Savino Bratton, a former Barksdale soldier now running with Stanfield. Savino claims he was not there when Chris and Snoop tortured and killed Butchie. Omar considers this for a moment. Then he kills him anyway. Later, in broad daylight, Omar limps into sight on a crutch to confront Michael's corner. He tells Michael to send Marlo a message, that he killed Savino, that he will take out all of Marlo's muscle until Marlo faces him personally. After Omar walks away, every kid on that corner is shaking. Every kid except Kennard. Kennard is the only one not overawed, and one afternoon, while buying a pack of cigarettes at a corner store, a child named Kennard walks up behind Omar and shoots him in the head. Kennard, a kid so young and so small that Omar never saw him as a threat, because Omar is from a generation that had rules, and the generation coming up does not. The Sun puts Omar's death in a two-line brief. No headline, no story. The most feared man in Baltimore dies in a convenience store and the newspaper does not even notice. That is the point. Omar's death is not dramatic. It is not a showdown. It is not a blaze of glory. It is random, meaningless. A child with a gun in a corner store. The show refuses to give Omar a hero's death because the show does not believe in heroes. It believes in systems. And in systems, legends die the same as everyone else. At the morgue, the medical examiner accidentally puts the wrong name tag on Omar's body. For a moment, the most feared man in Baltimore is just another unnamed corpse on a metal table. Bunk catches the error and corrects it. Because even in death, somebody needs to remember the names. Freeman, meanwhile, uses the fake serial killer resources to run an illegal wiretap on Marlo's crew. He cracks the clock code. It is the culmination of 2 seasons of frustration. Marlo stopped using phones after season 3. His crew switched to face-to-face meetings, dead drops, and eventually the photograph system. Freeman spent months staring at intercepted messages that made no sense until he realized the photographs themselves were the code. Each clock face is a cipher. Marlo's people were using photographs of clocks, texted between disposable phones to communicate. The hour hand indicates who is sending the message. The minute hand is the message itself. It is brilliant surveillance work built on a foundation of lies. Everything unravels at the same time. They arrest Marlo, Chris, Snoop, Monk, and Cheese. The wire comes down. The investigation is over. Kima has known about the fabrication for weeks. She watched McNulty and Freeman build the lie. She said nothing at first because she understood the frustration. The department shut down the Stanfield investigation for budget reasons, 17 bodies in vacant houses, and nobody in charge cared enough to fund the case. But understanding the frustration and participating in the lie are 2 different things. Kima Greggs goes to Daniels and tells him the truth. The serial killer is fake. McNulty and Freeman fabricated the entire thing. She does this because Kima is real police, and real police do not build cases on lies, even if the lies caught a murderer. Snoop does not make it to trial. Michael figures out that she is driving him to his own execution. In the car, he asks her too many questions. She brushes him off. He pulls her into an alley and puts a gun to her head. Snoop, staring down the barrel, checks herself in the car's side mirror and asks how her hair looks. Michael tells her she looks good, then he pulls the trigger. Daniels and Perlman confirm the fabrication. They go to Carcetti, and Carcetti, who built his political career on crime stats and institutional accountability, decides to bury it. Because if the public finds out that the serial killer was a hoax, it destroys his run for governor. The man who promised to fix Baltimore would rather protect his career than tell the truth. The deal comes down like this. Morris Levy, Marlo's lawyer, knows the wiretap was illegal. He threatens to expose it in court. Perlman plays her own card. She has a recording of Levy paying a courthouse mole for sealed documents. 10 to 12 years of exposure. Levy agrees to a plea deal. Chris Partlow takes life without parole for the vacant house murders. Monk and Cheese get up to 20 years. And Marlo walks. The condition is that he leaves the drug trade permanently. McNulty is finished. The department holds a mock wake for him, the tradition for detectives whose careers die before they retire. Landsman gives a eulogy. The officers who worked beside him acknowledge that whatever his flaws, McNulty was real murder police, the best the department had. Freeman takes full retirement. He goes home to Chardine. His last act in the department is helping to identify the courthouse mole and recording the call that brings down Levy. Michael takes Bug to his aunt's house in the suburbs. He says goodbye to his little brother on the doorstep and tries not to cry. Then, he drops Dookie off at the Arabers stable among the homeless and the lost. Dookie asks if Michael remembers a day from the summer before. Michael says he does not. They both know that is a lie. The next time we see Dookie, he is using on the street. The next time we see Michael, he's kicking in the door of Vincent's rim shop with a shotgun and robbing drug dealers. He has become Omar. Bubbles finally speaks at a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. He talks about Sherrod. He talks about the worst thing he has ever done. He cries. The room applauds. Waylon smiles. And when Bubbles goes home, his sister unlocks the door to the upstairs for the first time. She lets him sit at the dinner table with the family. After years of living in the basement, Reginald Cousins is allowed to come upstairs. That door. That single door between the basement and the upstairs of his sister's house. It has been locked since Sherrod's death, since Bubbles broke down in the homicide unit, since every relapse and every theft and every time he pawned her appliances while she was at work. His sister kept that door locked because she had to. Because trust, once broken by someone in the grip of a habit, takes years to rebuild. Bubbles rebuilt it. He sold newspapers on street corners. He volunteered at a soup kitchen, washing pots, instead of serving food because he could not face the people he used to be. He went to Narcotics Anonymous meetings and stood up and told his story. First with jokes, then without them. A reporter from The Sun named Mike Fletcher writes a profile on Bubbles. It is honest. It does not make him a saint or a cautionary tale. It makes him a person. When Bubbles reads the article, he is afraid of what people will think. Waylon tells him it is not the negative parts he fears. It is being seen as good, because since Sherrod's death, Bubbles has not allowed himself to believe he deserves anything good. The door opens. Bubbles walks upstairs. He sits at the dinner table with his sister and her children. Nobody says anything extraordinary. They just eat dinner. And that is everything. The final montage is The Wire's thesis statement. It runs for 7 minutes and shows you every cycle continuing. New faces in the same positions. New names playing the same roles. The city does not change, it just replaces people. Marlo attends a cocktail party thrown by Morris Levy's associates. He is surrounded by legitimate business people in suits. He lasts maybe 10 minutes before he walks outside and finds a street corner where two dealers are working. He confronts them. They have no idea who he is. They are telling Omar stories. Marlo Stanfield won the drug war and lost his name in the same transaction. The crown was not worth what it cost. Slim Charles shoots Cheese in a parking lot for his role in betraying Proposition Joe. When the other dealers protest that Cheese was going to contribute funds, Slim Charles says, that was for Joe. Nobody argues. Sidner walks into Judge Phelan's chambers and complains about the police department. McNulty once sat in that same chair, made the same argument, started the same chain reaction, and now Sidner is picking up where he left off. The detail will form again. The wiretap will go up again. The drug organization will adapt again. And in 5 years, another detective will sit in that chair and say the same words to the same judge. It is the exact same scene from the pilot episode. Different detective, same complaint, same system. Daniels becomes commissioner and immediately refuses to juke the stats. Carcetti's people threaten him with the old FBI file on his excess funds. Daniels resigns and becomes a defense attorney. Perlman becomes a judge. Carver gets promoted to lieutenant of the Major Crimes Unit. Valchek becomes police commissioner. Carcetti becomes governor. Nerese Campbell becomes mayor. The game goes on. The names change, the faces change, the corners stay the same. The institutions endure. The people inside them are replaceable. 5 seasons, 60 episodes. One city that never stopped telling you the truth about itself, even when nobody was listening. The Wire does not give you heroes. It gives you people trapped inside systems that are bigger than any individual. Some of them fight the system and get destroyed. Some of them play the game and survive. Some of them walk away. And some of them never had a choice in the first place. If you have stayed for all of this, you understand what this show is about. It is not about who wins or who loses. It is about the fact that the game never stops. The Wire never goes dead, and Baltimore is still Baltimore. If there is a single image that captures what this show is about, it is the final shot, a wide angle of Baltimore's skyline. The harbor, the row houses, the corners, the institutions, all of it still standing, all of it still broken, all of it still full of people who deserve better than what they got. David Simon built this show from the inside out, a former reporter and a former cop. Writing about the city they knew better than anyone. They did not flinch, they did not simplify, they trusted the audience to keep up, and the audience that found this show never forgot it. 60 episodes, no neat endings, no justice served, just the truth, delivered without apology that the institutions we build to protect us are the same institutions that destroy us, and the people caught inside them are doing their best with what they have. Thanks for watching, I will see you in the next one.